do I think I am? You can work with sound, with poetry, with text. You can work in theatre. All of these things became possible in terms of the expanded sense of what an artist could be. Charcoal, which is essentially burnt wood, is fantastic, both that it's a very primitive and basic way of making a mark. It is so flexible, because you can make a charcoal mark, and then with a cloth you can just blow it off and it changes. So you can change a charcoal drawing as quickly as you can think. Soho films have been made over a period of 25 years, but they're told from my viewpoint. I mean, for the first 40 years of my life, I grew up under apartheid, which meant I went to a segregated school, only white children. So very early on, I understood the absurdity of that political system in South Africa. The films work like a diary. They're personal stories, but also the whole world gets invited into the studio. In fact, if you look at them, you get some sense of South Africa's history from the era of apartheid to transformation to the new South Africa. I'm very interested in the studio of showing the process of making. Drawing lessons are all attempts to explore the multiple selves that we have and to interrogate oneself. In the studio, it's very easy. You can see yourself as the person, you're the person busy making the drawing. That's one person, that's one subject. And then you step back and look at the drawing and you think, look at what that stupid idiot drew. So you split into two. If you see the process in the studio, it is also a way of thinking about the artwork, but also of things outside of the studio. To use the studio as a model for making knowledge. And the black box piece on the exhibition here is a miniature theatre that looks at the magic flute of Mozart. So it takes some of Mozart's music, but then with the composer Philip Miller, it's undone, we rework it, it gets taken apart, slowed down, reversed, new pieces added, and it becomes a kind of essay about the magic flute rather than the Mozart opera itself. The refusal of time, it's not a scientific history of time, but it's really our relationship to time, which is to say our relationship to our own mortality. So this is like a big breathing bellows that keeps the whole thing going. We can think of a person as a breathing clock. People actually would use the body as a way of keeping time. And that difference between a kind of utopian action and its necessary failure. We live as if we're going to live forever, but we know that we're going to fail at that. But we can't let the failure stop the action beforehand. Politically, you can talk about it as the combination of hope and shame, or hope and defeat. And also in the Notes Towards a Model Opera, which also has to balance the idea of a utopian drive and a kind of a sense of failure that goes with it. And that every country, South Africa particularly, has things which nationally we're very proud of and things which are very shameful. And I'm interested in places when people try to hide the shame because it's so obvious, it's so evident. Throughout Africa, there's this extraordinary interest and question of the relationship of China to Africa, and in this case looking at the proletarian cultural revolution as one of the themes and using the language of it, the language of the model opera ballets, of some of the images from the prehistory of the cultural revolution, such as the campaign against rats and mosquitoes and flies and sparrows. So if you have an image of this bird that refuses to die, In that indirect way, that the piece takes images of Africa from the 1960s, of the liberation of Africa, of different African leaders that tried different forms of socialism in Africa. Understanding one thing which was also the world as process rather than as fact. So for example, you can look at a stool like this chair that I'm sitting on, to be very aware of the stool going backwards to the plank, to the tree, and going forward to the rubbish dump, to the fire, to the smoke, to the ashes.